Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I was scrolling through the comment section, and it's been in the back of my head. I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time, so I did want to talk about it anyway. But someone commented on it, and I almost feel like I have to comment on it because it was something I wanted to talk about anyway. So it says, someone said, it's Charles, says, the way that I see it, what has more potential to increase? 3x, 4x, 10x, etc. So he's talking about the returns or the leverage to a move. Physical metals or energy stocks? The answer is energy stocks. If silver goes to $50, I'll fall out of my rocking chair. Lots of laughs. So here is something I want to talk about because I think physical metals is actually, it could be a better play on energy if we have a major problem in energy. This is a major problem. This is going out like on the end of a curve that could potentially. I'm going to like the limits. All right. So when I think about things, I don't necessarily just think about an environment where everything stays the same. Now, what if we had a real energy crisis? We're talking like we hit peak oil, we hit some of these things like peak coal, peak natural gas. It's kind of all hitting at the same time, and that our alternative, our renewable energy sources, let's say they don't work. Like, what happens in an energy-starved world? What does that world look like? And you look at it, and I'm sure energy stocks will do incredibly well in that scenario because the price of energy is going to increase. All the metal prices will increase quite dramatically because if your energy becomes a lot more scarce and a lot more expensive, then your cost curves all go way up, which would drive the price of metals up. And if you're trying to do basically alternatives where you're going to be in a very mineral dense solution where you're creating solar panels, you're creating wind turbines and all these other things, which means we need a bunch of materials to build these things, then your metal prices go way up. Now, here's the question that I have, and I hear people talk about this on other YouTube channels. I hear experts or whatever, and they say deflation this, lots of long-term deflation. Guys, I don't think that scenario can even exist. I don't think we can have long-term deflation. People will go bankrupt. A whole bunch of things will go bankrupt. And maybe that scenario can exist, and maybe the dollar gets incredibly strong, but that's not what history suggests. History suggests that they're going to print money like no other. So if they print money like no other and they lose control over the inflation, I'm sure energy stocks will do well, but how do you transact out of it? What's your play to get out of the dollar? If your dollar is going to nothing, what do? It's priced in dollars, right? So your metals, your physical metals, is what does very well in that type of scenario. And physical metals, if you own the physical metals, like if you guys go buy an ETF, and a lot of people ask me this, oh, well, does this work with an ETF? Does this work with whatever? Yeah, you can do metal swapping with ETFs. It's very easy that way. But what if the dollar has a problem? I mean, what are you going to do? You can't redeem it for anything. You're stuck in dollars and you just got wiped out. Good, I own an ETF that's a representation of platinum or a representation of palladium or whatever it is. But the physical metals, I mean, that's ultimately what protects you. I mean, there's only been 3 things over a very long period of time that's protected wealth. That's precious metals, real estate, and art. Those are the only 3 things. Everything else has gone to zero. And what makes people think that now this time is going to be different? I think that, I mean, for my own kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, whatever it is, I'm piling more into physical metals, not less. I feel like what's coming ahead of us is even worse. And then you have to diversify yourself away from crazy people being the government. When you get into situations where they are starved for tax money, and the government, they need to like massively be reduced to much smaller levels, obviously. They're spending far too much. But if if you run into problems, they're going to be looking to tax everything. So if you're in your energy stocks, you think they're just going to let those things go? They're going to make a bunch of money, I guarantee it. And then they're going to blame the energy companies. This happened in 2008. They're going to bring them in. They're going to be like, energy's way up. How come you guys aren't producing more? What are you doing? And they're going to respond with, the market sets the price. We're not really that big of the energy. We produce 1 or 2 or 3% of the world's energy needs. It's mainly the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to talk back and forth, do all this stupid stuff. And then nothing gets resolved. They're just trying to put blame somewhere. They're going to tax the living heck out of energy, probably energy companies. They're going to tax us as investors. They're going to try to tax all these things. They're talking about taxing unrealized gains. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And when I look at physical metals, it's like, I think of like MC Hammer. You can't touch that. You can't touch that. You know that? It's like you're out of the system. Like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And they're going to try to hold this stuff down. They're going to try to manipulate. They're going to try to hold. But at some point, they're going to lose it, and they're just going to go vertical. The physical metals. Now, if you're playing it with companies, like mining companies, what if you're in a South African mining company, and the reason that platinum is going vertical is because South Africa has electricity problems? Did you capture that gain? No, you didn't, because that company is going to have problems. It's directly affecting them. So I've never lost money on physical metals. I've never lost money. Granted, I've had to hold the physical metals for a long time, but I've never lost. And a lot of them, I've gained a lot. So the ratios work incredibly well using physical metals, and you're isolated and protected against some of these stupid taxes, because they're going to try to tax stuff. And it's like, if you're buying it with cash or you do something that's a little bit different, they don't know you own it. So you're out of the system. Like, what are they going to do? I don't know. Maybe there's ways that you can find how you own it through, the internet or whatever, but not many people own this stuff. So I don't know if they're going to go to that extent. Maybe they will. I don't know. But if you're owning physical metals, I just see it as another way to diversify your ability to shield against taxes. And that's just something that, I don't know, I've just been thinking about it. And not a lot of people own this stuff. And if we go into an energy-starved world, physical metals might be another way to play it. So again, I'm a big physical metals fan. It's in your hands. It's one of 3 things that have protected your wealth over very long periods of time. Everything else is speculative. It is difficult to know. A lot of these oil companies, depending on which ones you're going into, they're going to have to replace their reserves. That's going to be difficult to do going forward as we go after lower and lower returning energy return on investment oil. And people are going to be fighting over this stuff. And guess what happens when people start fighting over it? What happens? Things get nationalized. Things get taken over. Wars develop. I mean, the physical metals, you're kind of protected against all that. If you're in an energy company, and depending on where they're located, they may or may not be safe. I don't know. They're going to probably get taxed. They could have their assets taken away from them. And this goes for mining companies as well. If you have mining companies, depending on where they're located, you go into an energy-starved world or a mineral-starved world where copper goes through the roof, or nickel and all these other minerals, they may or may not start taking some of those assets away from the companies. If they're in a country that the country determines that, this is a strategic metal, we are going to force you out, and we're not going to send you this strategic, whether it be energy or metals. You're going to be short, and people will be fighting over minerals and resources. When populations continue to go up and the mineral per capita goes down, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying, if you own the physical metals, that's what everybody wants to own. It's by far the least risk way to play it. So a way to think about it is, you may not get as much of a return. you may absolutely smoke the returns of mining companies and or energy companies. And the reason is because you think you're going to get a return when the prices go up. The prices go up and they nationalize your stuff. You don't get the return. It's gone. So I think sometimes to play an offensive move is to get the defensive stuff when it's the least expensive to get it. That is being on offense. It's protecting while also growing. And we have strategies on the channel where you can swap metals back and forth and increase your ounces and increase your purchasing power wealth with the lowest risk items. So you have a strategy with physical metals to increase your metals and increase your worth, and it's not just sitting there doing nothing. So I see that as kind of a, like, you gotta, I think, I mean, I've allocated some money to it, and it's a good portion of my net worth. So I look at it as a low risk way to increase my ounces and purchasing power over time, using ratios and swapping them back and forth. I think that some of these other ones, and I play the other routes as well, I just think there's a lot of risk there going forward. A lot of risk. And I think that you can see how these countries are becoming so desperate and what they're going and the extent of what they're going. I mean, they're going to lie to you. They're going to say things are transitory. They're not. They know that. They're going to print. They're going to do all sorts of things. And they're going to start taxing more because they are broke. So and I think states will do the same thing when pensions come and all this other stuff. They're broke. They're just going to start taxing people more and more and more and more. And then you're going to have the tax of increased inflation on you as well. So what's the best protection of all that? I think physical metals. But that's me. You're out of the system. They don't know how to tax it. It's preserved wealth for thousands of years. Yes, it may be manipulated for short periods of time. I don't think they can manipulate it on a long-term perspective. So if they are manipulating it, and I don't know if they are, good, you got cheap stuff. That's what they're manipulating. That's the cheapest. So if you guys want to take a long-term perspective outlook on it, I think the physical metals are probably some of the best bets, but that's me. And I've been buying more and more of it. I just keep piling into it. Why? I feel it's the safest bet. In a world where everything is backed by debt, when your energy stocks are priced in debt, the dollar is a debt. It's a Federal Reserve note. A note is debt. So all of your assets are priced right now by debt. What if that debt goes away? What is it priced at then? I don't know. I mean, that's exactly what my problem is. And I'd rather just leave my investments in there if something happens and use physical metals to transact or get value out of. However it is, if it gets to that extent. And I'm not claiming it will, but a lot of people I know that they just want to leverage up. It's like, guys, you don't have to leverage up this much. You've got incredible plays with physical metals, which are super low risk, that are going to do incredibly well. So that's my take. I just wanted to say that, get it out there so you guys know my side of things. And I think governments are going to get more desperate as time goes on, and they're already pretty desperate. So if you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. See you in the next video. This is Finding Value.